right, welcome back and thanks again for joining us. So we do continue with that broadcast from just outside the Joburg CBD. Sam Marshall coming to us live there, highlighting World Autism Awareness Day. There seems to be some activity there. Sam will bring us some information. A little bit earlier, he spoke to the Gauteng Education MEC, Mr. Panyaza Lusufi, about special schools that have been set up to accommodate these children and how the education system is absorbing them. Sam also raised some startling statistics as to just how many children are born with autism and the various education channels that they can take, because you know these are young ones who need education just like you and I, who are able in a number of ways but have one or two special needs. So that's quite important to highlight. But Sam, let's see if you can hear us now. It was a tad bit noisy a little bit earlier, but I suppose it's also the hustle and bustle of city life. Good morning to you once again.
But although reading it, you learn about that.
Good morning.
It's 200 rand. It's over there at the stand. We don't want to do stuff like this and not actually practical those things. Let us all.
Good morning, Yanda, and good morning to our viewers. Once again, we are broadcasting live from the Inner City Recreation Park, and this is where we're celebrating World Autism Awareness Day. A little bit earlier, we would have seen our conversation with the Gauteng MEC of Education, Panyaza Lusufi, and sharing his insights on why this is such a critical thing to get involved in with. He was talking about, of course, the work that the Education Department is doing, and some of them. He also admitted that there were shortfalls, things that they had to look at. And today we know it's a dialogue between Autism South Africa and the Gauteng Department of Education. Behind me, and I don't know if you can see, the official proceedings are underway. And it's 160 countries that will join the Light Up Blue campaign, where landmarks, buildings will be lit up in blue to highlight the need to improve the living conditions of people with autism. Now, one of the interesting things about autism is that the experts are saying that it can't be treated, it can only be managed, that it's a lifelong condition. And according to figures from Autism SA, the number is actually on the increase. Joining me now is one of the parents who has a 13-year-old son who's suffering from autism. It's Siphokazi Mtshotshisa. Siphokazi, good morning. Thank you very much for joining me here on Morning Live.
Good morning, Sam. Thank you to the viewers also.
Siphokazi, talk to me about your personal experience, because you've got a 13-year-old son, but he was only diagnosed at the age of 4.
Yes, he was diagnosed at the age of 4. As a result of that frustration, I had to form this organization, Moonlight Foundation for Autism. It's an entity for advocacy and training because of the frustration I experienced from the challenges of my son. After the diagnosis, I thought at least it would be a break. We had a diagnosis, but after that it was a challenge. We went from school to school. He went to 10 schools, if I can count. So after that, these entities for advocacy and training. So what we did, we mobilized the various stakeholders. One of the stakeholders that we've mobilized was the Minister of Social Development, Minister Batabile Dlamini. She's the first cabinet minister who took this autism disorder to Parliament. As such, now it was in her budget vote, and she made a big indaba in 2012 at the Guguletu Sports Center. So it was live there. Children were there demonstrating their behaviors. Everyone could see what this disorder means. So from there also we were assisted by the Film and Publication Board to get a program that can talk to our children, because the problem was that even on the education side, the programs that were there, the reason why they changed schools is because the program that is there does not accommodate their needs. It's about their needs. So Film and Publication and Board came in to assist us to develop a program. And ETDP CITA also assisted us. These are the stakeholders I'm talking about.
Sure.
Yes.
Because let me get into that conversation very quickly, because your son was diagnosed by an American doctor who was visiting South Africa. Tell me, why an American doctor? What was up to that point? You obviously, as you mentioned to me, you identified there was something wrong with your son, took him to the local doctors, but they couldn't figure out or diagnose it correctly.
Yeah, with them, I suppose most doctors are not trained in autism, but I've dealt with several doctors, even my cousin. My cousin is one of the best black pediatricians I've ever known. But also he does admit that in their textbooks, autism is the last first point in their textbook, so it's not an intensive part of a disorder discussion or curriculum in their curriculum. So I suppose it's training also on the doctor's side, because they kept on saying he's a low muscle tone. The diagnosis was a low muscle tone child, and this is a child who's been to different specialists, from this specialist to another specialist till to the vet speech school for language, because then we thought it's the speech the problem, but eventually no. So I suppose also training, we do need training for our South African doctors.
Explain the condition that your son suffers from.
My son is more of a classical autism. Most of them is such a challenging disorder. It's such a challenging part of the autism spectrum. They break stuff. They have tantrums. The toilet and the bathroom is a challenge. They have to be trained. And on their curriculum, it has to be a one-on-one teaching facilitation program.
Okay. Siphokazi, we run out of time, but thank you very much for joining us here. Siphokazi Mtshotshisa has a 13-year-old son that suffers from autism, and as she mentioned to you, it's quite classical. He's got a fascination with anything that shaped that's round. A little bit later, we'll have a chat to an expert.